So, we've already been introduced to Morocco, and we've seen where he challenges Portia in terms of the question of his complexion. Mislike me not for my complexion, the shadowed livery of the burnished sun. And you remember that he was talking about this in terms of his hue, and it was pretty clear the shadowed livery, that this was a kind of uniform, and it was the way that he was talking about his skin color. Now here in a minute we are going to really work some on this word complexion. But before we do that, let's take a look and see what Portia answers. So here's Portia's answer. Now it's really interesting because she says, in terms of choice, I am not solely led by nice direction of a maiden's eyes. And she's going to remind him that the lottery of her destiny has actually been set in place by her father. That the lottery of her destiny bars me voluntary choosing. And this is where you really need to be on your toes when you're reading Shakespeare's plays. And this may sound so little, but I'm really going to tell you, that you have to start paying attention to little stuff like punctuation, okay? So what we have here, looking at this word but, and then the word if. Now, this whole thing here is a sentence. And to really get it, let's see, how big is it? It's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 lines long. If you're really going to get this, you've got to pay attention to what the sentence is saying. And notice that, there's the if. Whenever you have an if clause in a line from a Shakespeare play, or many lines as we have here, you're going to end up somewhere you're either going to have the word then being explicitly stated, or at least you're going to have another clause that completes that idea. And she says, but if my father had not taken away my choice and said that I would have to go to whoever wins me, then she says, you yourself, Prince, then would have stood as fair as any comer I've looked on yet for my affection. Now you can remember that as far as the other suitors that she's looked at, you stand as fair as any I've looked on yet. And so, but you remember, she really didn't like any of them. So to a certain extent, there's kind of a subtext that he's probably not getting totally, that she's saying, you're at least as good as the others, which I don't really like. Well, I think it's kind of neat to look at the word that he uses here. The word that he uses is fair. Well, as you know, one of the meanings of fair is that someone is beautiful, but the second one, as you know, is light, fair complexion. So you are standing, it's really interesting to say, is she saying you are as beautiful or you are as fair? Even though he is probably dark-skinned, he's not going to be as light as some of the others. So it's already loaded, and definitely loaded in terms of looking at his skin color. Well, so this was Act 2, Scene 1. Act 2, Scene 7, that's when the game of the casket begins. And there's Morocco, and here's the gold casket, and here's the lead casket and the silver casket. You can notice they've put it at center stage there because they want, there's the gold casket, and as you know, it's the casket that's going to lose. And because Portia has her mindset on Bassanio, we can kind of, she's thinking about Bassanio all along, so she's more than happy to get him to focus on the casket that he's going to lose with. Well, luck is not going to be with Morocco. And here he is. This is from the Michael Radford version of the play, the one that we've looked at the film from a little bit. So Radford is the director, It's the one that Al Pacino is in. We've looked at that a little bit before. And here's Morocco. He's got a scroll that was there inside of a skull. Instead of it having Portia's image, it's going to have a skull. And he's got this, and you can see that he's reading it. Let's see if we can reduce this down. And take a look at the text. Okay, so here's the text. And Morocco is saying, oh hell, what have we here? There's a written scroll instead of Portia's image. And I think that this is actually, here's the famous line, all that glitters is not gold. Often have you heard that told. And I think that this is really kind of taunting him. It's gold, and everything that's going to be afterwards rhymes with gold, sold, behold, enfold. Your answer had not been enscrolled. Fare you well, your suit is cold. Oh no! So poor Morocco. Well, cold indeed and labor lost. So now he's going to part. And, one of the things about reading Shakespeare that you're going to learn, it's so hard to miss things, but you're going to have to pay attention. You've got to look at stage directions. Because, in the previous scene that I showed how Portia talks to Morocco and is very reassuring to him, it's important to see, well, how does she act when he's not there? So now he has exited the scene, and these are lines, and we get back at that word complexion again. Earlier she had said, you are as fair as any of the others. But now let's take a look at that word complexion and see how does she use it in, as he's left. So Portia, after he's gone, she's going to say, a gentle riddance, draw the curtains, go. Let all of his complexion choose me so. Now, this for me, as someone from the U.S., is really kind of a problem because there's that word complexion. So far, the way we've been using it to mean is that it means skin. Is Portia saying, let all of his race? If that were written today, I think that would be a good synonym for that. Let all of his race choose me so. And this provides a problem for me because really our emotional engagement with the play, we're supposed to be kind of following along Portia. We're supposed to be hoping that good things happen for her. I have a difficult time doing that. If I am, reading her say, let all of his race choose me so. And I have to say that when we get done with this reading, we're still not going to be certain because complexion here does relate to his skin color, but there's other ways that you can read it too. Well, when I first saw this, I was really surprised that there was no footnote from the word complexion that is saying anything about it, because it's such a packed-in word. Well, so I decided to take a look at another. Okay, so here we've got a copy. Okay, so here is a different copy of the play, and this copy of the play, this edition of the play is by David Bevington, and Bevington is one of the most esteemed of living editors of Shakespeare's works. And from his copy of the play, I can see that Bevington really kind of likes Portia as much as I do, or as much as I want to be able to do. And so here's Portia, and so he has already exited. So I've just, cut out a slice of the play here. So Morocco has exited. A gentle riddance, draw the curtains, go. Let all of his complexion choose me so. And, so Bevington is definitely going to footnote that word complexion. And here what he says about this is that it means temperament, not merely skin color. Now, that really had me perplexed, because I never use complexion to mean temperament. I might say somebody is light complected. I might say somebody has, good complexion, nice complexion, or, their complexion got better. People have different ages where their complexion is less good or bad. That's how they might use the word now. But it's generally always related to something about your skin. So I decided to take a look at the dictionary like I always do. And, as I've told you, I've got it there loaded into my favorites. I can look at the Merriam-Webster dictionary. I've got my Netflix and I've got my YouTube just in case I get a little bit bored. But here I've got the dictionary loaded up and type in the word complexion. It's really easy to do. And looking at the definitions of it, it's not really till the third definition that you get anything about skin. In the fourth definition here, the overall aspect or character. So, boy, that does start to sound something like this word temperament. An individual complex of ways of thinking or feeling, a complex of attitudes. Well, yeah, that sounds like temperament. That sounds like a person's personality or disposition. Could Portia be saying, let all of his personality, let people that are like him choose me so, that is, fail to choose correctly? Well, I was still a little perplexed by this. The first definition is actually the most interesting, and we'll start to unpack that a second. The combination of hot, cold, moist, and dry qualities held in medieval physiology. Well, that's kind of weird, I bet, if you'd seen that. Unless you've had a class in that or studied that somehow. What in the world could that be talking about, and how could that be related to skin color? Well, for those of you that are UIC students, highly suggested once in a while, if you're finding a word that really seems rich, take a look at it in the Oxford English Dictionary. And this is online. You don't have to go and look it up. You can just go to the home page, the UIC homepage, tap on the databases, and here you get the Oxford English Dictionary. And this is going to give you a definition that will be rich, complex. It's not your everyday dictionary, but it's going to be one that if you used it in a paper, it's going to get you a lot of mileage. Well, so here's the definition in the OED. And it says, in the physiology and natural philosophy of the Middle Ages, that is, the medicine of the Middle Ages, the combination of supposed qualities, cold, hot, moist, dry, in a certain proportion that determines the nature of a body. The bodily habit attributed to such combinations. And there's what Bevington is talking about when he said, temperament, let all of his temperament choose me so. So we'd like to give you just a little thumbnail sketch of what this might be talking about. In medieval medicine, there would be a doctor, and this is going to be about as much as they're going to be able to do most of the time, because they really couldn't. They could look at a body from the outside. They might collect some of your urine and look at that and look at the stars. If somebody was already dead, they might have cut that person open and found the different fluids that are inside of a body. And so medieval medicine, it's going to kind of be based upon the fluids they were able to find. And these fluids, let's see, basically there's blood, there is bile and black bile, and I think this is the bile, and this is actually phlegm. Okay, so those are fluids that they had found with people, and the way that this figured in with medicine is that you would have these 4 fluids. And if somebody had too much of one or another, that might make them sick, and so they might try to give you a transfusion or do something that would help with regards, or give you some herbal treatments so that if you had too much of one fluid and that was making you sick. But this could also determine some things about your personality. Melancholy is definitely a word that we still use now. If a person is depressed, we would say that they're melancholic. And in medieval medicine, this would be that you have too much of the black bile, and this is making you maybe sick, but it also might just be making you depressed. Well, now we're starting to get sort of an idea about how these fluids might affect a person's temperament. And so you might go to a doctor and talk to them and say, and the doctor might say, so there's a medieval doctor, and he might look at the patient, and this might have to do with, his health, but it might also have to do with the person's temperament. Is the person particularly sanguine, or is the person melancholic? Well, this is determined by the different fluids in their body. So now we get back to this passage. Well, let all of his complexion choose me so. And Bevington is saying, you know what? That doesn't have to mean skin color. She might be saying, let all people that are of his temperament choose me so. So now we get like the different meanings of this term. Here, when we were looking at the first meaning of it, he was drawing connections about how it was kind of a shadow livery, a dark uniform, that it had a hue, a color, and this looks definitely like skin color. Here, it doesn't necessarily look like it could. So this is skin color. This, is it skin color or is it temperament? Well, there's one more use of the term in the play. There's one more use of the term in the play, and that's going to point us towards really opening this up and kind of putting us into the problems about how race and insiders and outsiders and the way that some of these qualities have changed historically. Well, the last time that the word complexion is used is in Act 3, Scene 1 of the play. And you may remember that there's Salanio and Salario, and those are the merchant Antonio's friends. They enter and they're having a conversation about what's happened with some of Antonio's ships, and then enters in Shylock. Well, at the same time that Portia's casket game is going on, Shylock has a daughter who has run off with one of the Christian friends of Bassanio. And Shylock is so distraught. He says to Salario and Salanio, you knew none so well as you of my daughter's flight. And they're really just taunting him. That's for certain. I, for my part, knew the tailor that made the wings she flew with. And here's where it gets kind of interesting. Salanio says, and Shylock, for his own part, knew the bird was fledge. And fledge means fledgling, or she had gotten the feathers that she's going to fly with. Shylock, for his part, knew she was fledge, and that it is the complexion of them all to leave the dam, the mother. Okay, so it is the complexion of all birds who are about to fly that they're going to leave their mother. Well, this is the final use of the term complexion in the play, and here we really start to get, a sense of all the possibilities about how you're going to read this and how it relates to the different romantic plots and the different ways that race and culture are thought about. So here's Act 3, Scene 1. There's one way that it's used. This is the end of Act 2, Scene 7, and there's the initial use of it that we had. Okay, so this is Act 2, Scene 1. Here he's talking about complexion, and as we were saying, this is definitely skin color. And this last one, Portia, let all of his complexion choose me so. This one I think is kind of up in the air. Bevington suggests it could be temperament, and if you like Portia, you're going to have to work with the question of, is this his race? Well, this third use of it, this is definitely not race. Shylock, for his part, knew that the bird, that is his daughter, was about to fly, and that it is the complexion of them all to leave the dam. So complexion, I would suggest, is much more like what Bevington was suggesting in the earlier note, that it's temperament. And here, if we look at his note, let's see if we can zoom in on that. So if we zoom in on the word, we're going to lose how, well, we'll just cover everything else up here. Well, here the word, and it's kind of fuzzy, but here definitely, he says complexion. It's like natural disposition, that it was Shylock, for his part, knew the bird was fledge and that it was the complexion. So here, complexion definitely does not mean race. It is the temperament. It is the personality of all people, of all basically young people, that they're going to leave home. And so, we're kind of left with this question about, does race, is it a matter of skin? Here it was. In the case of Act 2, Scene 1, that's definitely skin color. In the case of Act 3, Scene 1, it's definitely not skin color. And the problem, or the issue that many of you may face looking at Portia is this race here, or is it a question of temperament? Well, if you're going to write about this, I think it's a wonderful issue. I've just started to open some things. We're going to look at some sources later on that are going to help you to deal with this, because definitely we know that insiders and outsiders really do play a part in how we understand this play.